Welcome back to another episode of the Braun Performance and Rehab Podcast, powered by ISOFIT and Firefly Recovery. ISOFIT is my go-to for all things isometric strength training. For more on ISOFIT, be sure to check out isofit.com. Episodes like this are made possible by Firefly, the official recovery provider of the Braun Performance and Rehab Podcast. For more on Firefly, be sure to check out recoveryfirefly.com. This episode is powered by Dr. Ray Gorman, founder of Engage Movement. Learn how to boost your income without relying on sessions. Get a free training on the blended practice model by following at Ray Gorman DPT on Instagram. Joining me on the podcast today is Samantha Swanovich. Samantha is a Division I women's lacrosse athlete, and she has unfortunately faced several knee injuries, in particular of her ACL. And we dive into that in detail today. We talk about her journey recovering from not one but two ACL injuries. That way, we talk about her time and experience in the lacrosse space, and we talk about all the different places she's lived, from the Midwest to Florida to the New Jersey area around Rutgers where she attends school and beyond that way. This is an amazing episode, and I really appreciated Samantha's time and the opportunity to learn from her. Enjoy. Samantha, welcome to the podcast. I'm super excited to work with you today. For people who aren't familiar with you, your journey in the sport of lacrosse, and maybe some of these different things that kind of popped up along the way, would you mind filling in a little bit about who you are and all that you've been through?
So I'm Samantha Swanovich. I am from Tampa, Florida. I play Division I lacrosse at Rutgers University up in New Jersey. And I am going into my redshirt sophomore year because of my two ACL injuries that have happened the past few years. Lacrosse has always been like a huge part of my life. I've played since I was about 7 years old. My brother was the one who kind of actually introduced me to it. When we lived up in Minnesota, he played box lacrosse, and I was so fascinated by it. So he actually was the one who introduced me to the game, which was really cool. So from the start, I've always wanted to play college lacrosse or college sports in general. So I've always like had that drive, had that will to like put in the time, put in the effort, whether that be for basketball or lacrosse or whatever sport. So when I moved down to Florida, I played both basketball and lacrosse, and my love for basketball kind of just dissipated a little bit, and I started leaning more towards lacrosse, and I'm really happy that it did because it kind of led me to where I am today. Um, so when I moved down to Florida, I joined like super competitive lacrosse clubs, and so, like all throughout my middle school and high school years, I did that competitive club, which means like going to all those recruiting events, all those camps, all those like college stuff and all that stuff, which it's really hard, honestly. Like as a 16, 15-year-old girl, you're like trying to figure out what you want to do with your life and everything. And, I feel like playing sports in college, you have to figure that out a little bit earlier than most people. So obviously it's always a challenge, but I'm really happy with where I'm at today and like where my journey kind of led me because Rutgers was a really good fit for me. I've always wanted a big school with sports, football games, like all that fun stuff. Being close to the city was honestly a really big perk with my major being marketing, all those businesses and stuff is a really good opportunity, I would say. Just getting those opportunities, I think, is a little better than here in Florida. So I kind of just wanted to try something new, start like a new chapter in my life, moving away. So yeah, it was kind of hard at the beginning, but I'm happy to where it led to me today. And I just had those injuries and stuff, which were minor setbacks. But yeah, do you want me to talk a little bit about those?
I mean, we have so much to unpack here, Sam. That is a amazing backstory. And first off, I mean, you mentioned you grew up in Minnesota initially and then moved to Florida. I'm sure that was a real difficult decision to move to the sunshine and the warm weather and the beaches away from, the winter and that sort of thing. My goodness.
Tough decision. Oh my gosh. So hard.
It's funny though, because anytime I talk with someone from Minnesota or even just like the Midwest in general, there's this thing that comes up a lot, the Minnesota nice or the Midwest nice or something like that. Like for whatever reason, there's something about people who are from the Midwest originally where they're just like they go out of their way to like help you out and just are like some of the nicest people you'll ever meet, stereotyping a little bit that way. Do you find that kind of carried over into Florida, or I'm just curious to hear your thoughts and take on the whole Midwest nice thing. Is that even a thing, or?
Definitely. Like all my family still lives up in Minnesota and like you can just tell the difference like in the way people act and like the way, just people talk as well. I kind of got my confidence from living up in Minnesota and talking to my family because I've always had like a little bit of like a shy side where talking to people was kind of hard for me at a young age, but always talking to my family and stuff kind of just like branched me out because like they're such good communicators, they're so like such nice people. Um, and definitely carried down to Florida with my friends here, made really good friends. And I think just the way I presented myself allowed me to find like my people. And even in college, like I am definitely a more outspoken person. I just kind of like let my personality show. And I think that's all because of growing up in Minnesota and Florida. You kind of get a little bit of like that sass from Florida and like that little fire. But so I kind of think like the mesh of the two kind of build me to where I am today and the way I like present myself. So yeah, I would definitely say Minnesota nice is a thing.
I like that. The Florida sass and the Minnesota nice. That's quite a combination there. I'm a big fan
Yeah.
of that. You mentioned as well that your brother introduced you to lacrosse and he was playing box lacrosse growing up that way. Tell me a little bit more about that influence and impact that he had on you in the sport of lacrosse and how did his own career kind of continue around it and how did that kind of later impact and influence your decisions around the sport that way?
He kind of just kind of brought me out to the fields one day and was like, "Hey, just pass with me. I'm trying to get better, whatever." Don't really remember all the little like details, but so yeah, I from this moment I like picked up that stick, I was like, "Wait, this is kind of fun. It's very different. Like you're using a stick and a ball instead of like just dribbling or like kicking the ball." So it kind of had a different like layer to it, which I liked. And he kind of showed me like how to start like shooting and doing wall ball and all these different things. So I thought it was really cool just because there's so many different aspects to lacrosse and like the skill you need. There's so much strategy behind it, which I loved. And I feel like basketball, like I'm very tall, I'm 6 feet tall. So basketball kind of runs in my family. So I kind of just wanted to like lean away from that and kind of be different in the sport of lacrosse because a lot of the girls playing are fast, they're short, like they're shifty and all that. So kind of trying to be a different threat in lacrosse, and it obviously worked out for me. So I could have played basketball in college or, tried to see where that could have taken me, but I'm happy with lacrosse. My brother actually played all the way up through high school, which he kind of like was my role model with that, getting me to the varsity level really quick, helping me with all that like skill and strategy and everything, kind of getting me implemented into the game at a young age was helpful. His love definitely piqued mine, so he was very helpful with that. And he ended up not wanting to play in college. So I kind of saw both ways of like, okay, going to college just to be a student, joining like a sorority or a frat, all that stuff. And like, I was like, okay, I know I want to continue this sport. I didn't really want to do that like side of college and just kind of focus on sport because since I loved it so much and like I wanted to see where the sport could take me in the end because it's obviously a really fast-growing game. There's a lot of different things that girls can do nowadays with lacrosse, which I thought was really cool because obviously a lot of sports like soccer, basketball, they're already super big, and I kind of wanted to be a part of something a little smaller so I could help grow the program and like the sport itself. So I knew that like seeing him just do his college and everything, I was like, I want to do more and I want to like continue this sport and see how far it can take me. So, like he was definitely a help along the way and like supporting me and everything with that and just helping me grow my love for the sport of lacrosse.
And when you
So,
started playing the sport at age 7 that way, were you mostly playing box and kind of indoor kind of lacrosse in Minnesota, or they have an outdoor league as well? And for people who don't know, talk us through some of the differences that come from playing box and kind of like a small-sided game, if you will, compared to kind of outdoor that way.
the one outside, the field's way bigger. You do with box lacrosse, you're inside of a stadium. There's walls on the side, so if you like hit it off the wall, it bounces everywhere. The goals are way smaller with box lacrosse. The goalie also takes up more of the net, so it kind of comes down to like more strategy with like how to score the ball, how to move the ball, like bouncing it off the walls, all that type of stuff. With field lacrosse, it's way bigger. It's about a size of like a soccer or football field, so it's a lot more running. Um, and more like you have to learn how to like pass the ball farther and work with your teammates more, I think, because the field is so big. So you have so many components with it, like defense going to the midfield, going to the attack, like most sports, field sports. But lacrosse with strategy, there's a lot more with like small sided, I think, because of how tiny the ball is, like how like flat your stick is. Because with girl sticks, the nets are way flatter. So boys sticks, you have the ball like way deeper in your net. Another big aspect is that girls can't hit other girls while guys like can do contact a lot. So I think that's another thing that comes with strategy because we can't do all this stuff, so we have to like use more of like strategic lacrosse IQ is what we call it, to move the ball up the field and like score. So,
And then there's
um,
the shooting lane element of it too that I find a lot of people don't understand. I mean, I don't fully understand it either. It's like we have to leave space, but we can't leave too much space. It's a whole thing.
yeah, I will say there's a lot of different things for defense as well. With you said shooting lane, you can't leave as much space, but if you are in front of them when they're about to shoot, you get what's called an 8 meter. So you basically get a free shot like in basketball. Um, so that's a different thing, like with boys and girls as well, is like we get more lenient with free shots. Well, they don't have that. So there's just different aspects to the boys and the girls sides that makes it unique, which I like as well. Because like basketball, girls, guys, a lot of it's the same. So I kind of like how like our sport is very unique on a lot of different aspects for box and field.
Absolutely. And recently I did a podcast with Avery Dew, and we talked a little bit about college lacrosse. And one of the things that she brought up was a lot of people were telling her that they felt like women's lacrosse at the college level was too dangerous and it was too unsafe and all these different things that way. And I feel like, as you mentioned, contact isn't a big part of the game in the sense that you're not like checking people like you might in men's, but there's still a lot of contact that occurs. There's still a lot of
Oh,
bumps and bruises that occur. And I think to a certain extent, that's part of the game. That's what makes it so engaging and exciting to watch is it's
yeah.
extremely fast paced. You do have a little bit of a contact element with it. But if we take that element away even further than it already is, at least in my opinion, it kind of starts to dilute lacrosse from what it really is, in my opinion. It slows it down. It kind of forces more of these different things of like technicalities and so on that way. And I just feel like it would start to take away from what the game truly is. Not to say that, I like a dangerous sport by any means, but it's also like I think that there's a certain element of risk that comes with any good sport, right? Like I like watching like MMA, UFC type stuff, and they're literally punching each other in the face. That's way more risky than lacrosse would be, but it's like there's a certain element of that risk that's almost like engaging for us to watch that way, I guess I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I agree. We just got this new rule in the past few years. It's called a green card, which you can get between the 30-yard lines, which I will say slows the game down a lot more because if you check or something between those lines, you get a 1 minute penalty. So it like slows the game down more. And with more of these like technicality calls, like that's what slows the game down more. And like I don't necessarily like that because I like the flow of the game when we're just kind of like going back and forth and like allowing us to play and like not just keep stopping it and like having to restart all that stuff. So I definitely agree with you. I like definitely think in college you kind of have to have a little bit more leniency with contact because we are at this like level for a reason and we kind of got to this level because we are so like mentally and physically strong and like are able to take the contact, I will say. So,
Yeah, I completely agree with you that way. It's like you got to this level, you've trained so hard for so long in your life. It's time to reap the rewards and have some fun and, that sort of thing. And I would love to, this is just kind of how my brain works. I'd love to see a league of women's lacrosse that allows kind of the pad and protection level that men's have, that also allows the contact that men's have, because there's some women's lacrosse athletes I've worked with that I'm like, with the physicality that you bring from some of the other sports, I feel like you would have really fun going out there and like checking a few people that way if it was allowed that way. So I think, in the future, when lacrosse continues to blow up and expand like it has been, I would love to see kind of a expanded version of women's lacrosse that actually allows more contact than it already does, in my opinion.
Yeah, like some box leagues and stuff allow that. They wear pads and act more like the boys' sport. So definitely want to give that a try and see if I like that.
Absolutely. What was
Yeah.
that transition like for you when you were moving from Minnesota to Tampa that way? Obviously, whole new world, very different than what you're used to that way. What was that kind of like transition process like for you that way?
Basketball is definitely not as big as it is in Minnesota. So I tried leagues down here and I kind of was like, okay, this isn't as, worth my time because lacrosse is all year round down here because we have the opportunity to play outside every day. So I also liked how down here we can play every day. Like I can train every day out in the sun and and not have to be like cooped up inside. And like the difference was in Minnesota, I couldn't do lacrosse year round, but I could do basketball year round. So I think like the move really helped me lead me to lacrosse in a way where I think if I lived up north still, I would have been like I think more confined to basketball and like pursued I think that more. So I'm really happy we moved down here because obviously like lacrosse is a spring sport, but you're allowed to still train in the winter. I have my club practices and like all that stuff was year round during high school and club or in middle school. So I think that also made me to the player I am today because I was able to practice and do everything outside every day. So I think that was the biggest transition was basketball and lacrosse kind of flipped for me. Um, so yeah, I'm happy we ended up moving down here for sure.
It's so interesting that you say that because I think of a lot of the traditional like lacrosse states, I call them, right? Like
Yeah.
Maryland or like, the Long Island, New York City area of New York that way. And they're not necessarily known for super nice weather year round and like sunshine and playing, lacrosse
Yeah,
outside year round that way, yet they're still lacrosse states. But I can
they're
see
so
how,
good. Crazy.
Florida, for example, like Tampa area for lacrosse is booming right now. University of Tampa just won like second consecutive national championship or something ridiculous. USF's women's lacrosse program is very much on the rise, and they had a phenomenal season. It's like to me, it makes a lot of sense how that area would be such a good spot for lacrosse. And I mean, I guess the other piece too is if you wanted to, you could take your stick and roll over to the beach and just mess around in the sand for a while too.
Yeah, I definitely do that a lot. And I think it just like makes my love kind of grow for it because I can do so many different things with it. And I'm not just confined to like practicing when I practice because like it's, you know, summertime up north and I have the opportunity to be outside or like I can only practice indoors in the winter. So I'm happy like I have that opportunity to do so many different things. Like you said, go to the beach with it, like, just mess around. So I kind of like that. Definitely since I live in Florida, it's a good way to experience lacrosse, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. No, it definitely is. And you mentioned as well that you were kind of going through this whole recruiting process, traveling all over the place for lacrosse that way, and eventually settled on Rutgers being where you're going to spend, at least the start of your collegiate career. And obviously, sounds like you're going to see out your collegiate career there at Rutgers as well. What goes into that decision for you as far as deciding what university to play lacrosse at? Because it's something that comes up a lot when I talk with athletes. They feel like it's a very difficult decision to make. They feel a lot of pressure behind that decision. And on one side, I've talked with athletes that are like, well, if it doesn't work out, I'll just go into the transfer portal. But on the other side, I've talked with a lot of athletes that really don't think highly of the transfer portal and they just want to go someplace that feels right for them and stay there indefinitely throughout their college career that way. So, how did you kind of find that right fit for you in Rutgers that way? What stood out to you?
Well, I will say the transfer portal, like it's like doing recruiting again. So after you go through like that really hard summer where you're spending every day at like a college camp or like a recruiting event, something like that, like having to do that again is crazy, especially because like the first time you did it was like 16, 17 years old. No, I was probably 15 going on 16, which is even more crazy. But yeah, being that young, I think it's the hardest part is knowing what you want to do and finding the school that like fits the best way because you're so young, you're supposed to have a few more years to try to figure it out and like feel out your high school years of like, okay, like I like a bigger school, I like a smaller school, I want to major in this, I want to major in that. But knowing what you want to do at 15 or 16 is like a lot to ask for in like girls, I think. Um, but for me, Rutgers stood out to me because it was a big school. I knew that I wanted to like have a big sports school where like sports or the school kind of revolves around sports and being able to go to different like sporting events like soccer games, football games, all the fun stuff. Basketball games are huge at my school, they're really fun. So I definitely wanted a bigger school. And some of the schools that reached out to me on September 1st were smaller, but I still like visited them. And I kind of found that like I didn't like that. And I kind of was happy got the firsthand experience going there and knowing that like that wasn't the fit for me. I also knew that Rutgers has a good business school. So whatever I wanted to major in, I knew that at least like the school that I wanted to go into was good and like I'm coming out with a degree no matter what. So like as far as like the sports can take you, like you still have to get a good degree. Like you got to get a job out of college and everything, which is more important. So knowing Rutgers had a really good business school was a check mark in my box. Yeah, and also the proximity to like Philly or New York and getting those opportunities was also a big thing for me. Because out of college, like I want to be able to get really good opportunities while staying in the sports realm. Like I'm in marketing right now, but definitely want to stay on the sports side of the marketing world. So getting those opportunities closer to New York and like even at Rutgers, like I get those opportunities, which is really cool. Yet it is really far away from where I live. That was a big problem, or not problem, but like th thing I like considered being that far away from my family. So I was like, do I want to stay far away? Do I want to stay close to home? That was also a big factor that went into my decision. And luckily, my parents were like, if you go far, we will come up and visit you enough. Like, we will see you. They came and supported a lot of my games this year, which was awesome. So my first season back in like 2.5 years, like they came to it. It was awesome. They saw me score my first goal and everything, which was really cool. So I think also just being far away, it has its like downsides, but the perks are like when you see your family, it's like, oh my gosh, like I haven't seen you in so long. Like we need to catch up. We need to do all this. So it's not like I'm staying like 20 minutes from my house and I see my family every day. Like it's more of like a treat when I get to see them. So it's kind of like builds up to the moment, which I actually really like. And sometimes it was hard, especially with my injuries my freshman year or last year. My mom had to come up and help me with my surgeries and everything. So that was a downside because I didn't obviously expect to get injured again. But yeah, she came up and helped me for like 2 weeks. I had my surgery up in New Jersey and everything. So just having like that family stuff like was very helpful with my decision as well because they were very supportive of whatever I wanted to do. They were supportive of whatever I wanted to go.
Absolutely. It's so great to have that family support element and ultimately find that place that just kind of checks all the boxes that you're looking for by the sounds, right? It's one of those things that I think a lot of people feel like they're not going to ever find that place, but it does exist out there for people. And if you haven't
Yeah.
found it yet, sometimes you just need to keep looking and find that place that can balance everything you want in the moment from a collegiate sport element to life beyond sport as well.
Yeah.
That way, as you mentioned, kind of after your career ends. Now, you mentioned a few times about injuries that have come up a couple of times, whether that be ACL number one or ACL number two that way. Walk me through ACL number one, because I believe that was in high school that occurred, correct?
Yes. So I actually tore it at Rutgers after I was committed. So thankfully, like I was already committed at that point. Like I didn't have to worry about recruiting anymore. Um, but I tore it at Rutgers on the field that I practice on now. So A little crazy, but yeah, it was interesting because it obviously sucked to tear it in front of my college coaches that were, going to be my coaches in the next few years. Um, but it was also a blessing because they were able to see it, they were able to help me through it, stay in contact with me. Like I think it kind of made a bond with my coaches that like I wouldn't have had if I didn't like hurt myself, even though you don't ever want to get an injury. Um, but yeah, so my first one was kind of really tough for me, especially senior year when you kind of want to do all these things. You want to have your like star season your senior year, like go out with a good season, all that stuff. So that was really hard for me not being able to participate in that with my friends. Also, like being isolated and not being able to go anywhere, staying at my house for like months at a time. I wasn't able to walk for 6 weeks because I tore my ACL, my meniscus, and everything in my knee basically. So with meniscus tear, both times I wasn't able to walk for 6 weeks, especially going around campus and everything was really hard. After I was like cleared to go to school again. Um, but yeah, I think the hardest part was like mentally getting past it because the second I did it, I was like, okay, we're gonna figure this out. Like, it's not gonna be a big deal. We're going to like rehab the heck out of it and just get back to what I want to do. It's just a bump in the road, whatever. But after a few months, you kind of start to like hit it. Um, where you hit like this wall where you are not mentally doing good. Like you kind of just want to give up because you're not seeing any progress. And I think that was the hardest part because I've never had anyone in my or no, I had people in my life like currently like tear it. So I didn't know how to like manage it. Like my family is definitely prone to tearing their ACL because we're such a tall family, like with the genes and everything. Um, but I will say not having anyone I knew personally do it at the time was hard because I didn't know how to navigate it and I was trying to figure it out all by myself and not like reaching out to people. So I was basically isolating myself from everyone and just being like, okay, I'm figuring it out myself. I'm not letting anyone else help me. And I think that's the biggest mistake people make is that they don't allow people to help you because a lot of people going through the injury think they don't know what I'm going through because they never experienced an ACL tear, which is true, but also just talking to people throughout your ACL recovery is huge. And whether that be family, your PT, or, just a friend, but reaching out to people, talking to people about it is, I think, the best way to get over that mental hump because it gets really lonely. And I will say, like, if you don't like your PT, like, that also is a hard thing. Like, you need to find a PT you love that you can talk to, like, that will be kind of like a parent to you throughout it and like help you through it because you're going to be with them all the time and everything. So, I also think that's a really big thing that I kind of struggled with because I didn't feel like I could talk to my PT as much as I should have. Like, the second time I had an amazing PT, I talked to him all the time, like, but the first time was a lot more challenging because I felt like I couldn't. So I think that's a big thing is finding a PT that you can talk to, you can like reach out to, open up to, whatever. And yeah, I think physically, the struggle of like getting your muscle back, your range of motion back was really hard. And just like knowing you're not seeing the results you want to at the beginning is like a really big thing because all you want to do is like get back to your sport. So I think like that's a big thing too. Like there's mental and there's physical sides to both of it. And just like mentally as well, like losing your identity because a lot of us, like myself, like sports are like our lives. And when that's taken away, like what do you have left? Well, I think the biggest thing is like for me, I went out and like I found new hobbies, like I found new ways to get active and like, like I went on bike rides, I went on walks, I went on like just doing stuff to like clear my mind, like get it off of lacrosse because like obviously all you want to do is like think about your sport and everything. So I think just finding different ways to like keep busy is also a big thing, I would say.
Quick break because if you're a rehab professional sick of burnout, this could be your answer. Engage Movement's blended practice model is a proven system built by Dr. Ray Gorman. a PT who walked away from the 55-hour-a-week grind and built a blended practice model that doubled his income while working less than 25 hours a week, and he didn't have to rely on the traditional way of selling sessions to do so. It's all about blending remote and in-person services, stacking monthly recurring revenue, and building a business that finally supports your life, not the other way around. This model isn't just theory. Real providers, including myself, are creating lives of freedom and flexibility without being tied to their schedule. And as a listener, you get free access to the complete training. DM my name, Dan, to @RayGormanDPT on Instagram and receive your free breakdown on the model. Absolutely. You touched on so many amazing points. I mean, first off, it comes up every time I talk with athletes that way, just how dark and lonely the ACL game can be sometimes. Just going 9+ months without the sport, which obviously in your case, you played since you were 7. So it's like,
Yeah.
man, for the first time in over a decade, I have to try and figure out what life without lacrosse in it looks like. And
Yeah.
it's very daunting. And I think it's not recognized or not appreciated enough, kind of the mental and psychological role that some of these things play in the process. And then on top of that as well, there's just a lot of fear around this, whether that's, doctor looking at you and saying, oh, well, you're never going to play your sport again, or people online, whether that's social media or just online statistics that way. Like there's a lot of people that are just naysayers, for lack of a better way to put it. And I think the more you listen to those voices and surround yourself with those people, the more right they're going to be long term, unfortunately. I think
Yeah.
eventually that stuff gets said to you so much that you start to believe it and it
Yeah.
changes how you act and how you go about things. And I think we need to find ways to shift our conversation from, why did this happen and why is it so, why is it that so many people feel I'm never going to get back to, hey, this happened to me. I'm going to, do everything I can. I'm going to get back. I'm not going to be just part of a statistic or a number that someone cites. Like it's possible to come back from this. And it's not only possible to come back, but come back better than I was
Yeah.
before. So I think part of it becomes a big mindset shift and paradigm shift from all of us, the athlete, the providers, everyone. And then the second piece is obviously, as you mentioned, surrounding yourself with the right providers because
Yeah.
there are phenomenal people and there's those that unfortunately aren't at the position where they can provide what you need from an ACL standpoint. And I think until you've really gotten into this game, until you've worked with 40, 50, 60 different people who have undergone ACL injuries that way, or until you've seen it yourself or someone in your family have it that way, it's very difficult, if not impossible, to grasp all the different factors that go into this, but also everything that's needed from a recovery standpoint. And I don't think it's up to one person alone to provide everything that you need. I think it's really how do we put a team together for you as the athlete, right? How do we bring you
Yeah.
best PT, the best AT, strength coach, if you need a nutritionist, if you need sports psych, whatever it is that way, how do we put all of these people on the same page, like basically playing for you? And
Yeah.
you're kind of like our metaphorical coach, and we're all the athletes that are playing for you in this goal, hopefully working to get you a nice big win in this. And I think the more we kind of shift our mindset to that team-based approach and humanizing the entire process, the better off we're all going to be.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely had that support system. My going through my second ACL in college, I had nutritionists, I had my trainer helping me all the time, my AT, my PT, everyone was there for me and like knowing my goals, they helped me to reach those this year playing again. So that was just so awesome. Like seeing the difference is like you have one person compared to like six, you know? So because you're right, one person can't like do everything for you. And like when you're going through like the mental piece, like it's hard to like get yourself out of that hole. But if you have the people to help you through it, it's a lot easier.
Absolutely, absolutely. And what kind of things do you give to other athletes as advice for their whole approach of finding a surgeon or PT or whatever it is that way if they've faced an injury like this? Because a lot of times I've found athletes trust other athletes. They lean on them for advice that way. So what kind of things do you kind of offer to them as advice if they're facing some of the similar struggles that you've faced that way?
I would say definitely testing out PTs. I went to like three or four in my area my first year or my first time doing it. And I was like, okay, like, do I connect with them? Like, do they seem like genuine? Are they going to put the time in like that I'm going to give them? Like, because it's a two-way street and you want them to help you as much as you want to help them. So, um, I definitely think finding the right fit for your PT, and like I got super lucky with my PT at Rutgers. He was awesome. He literally like helped me through all the things. Like if I was like, okay, like I can't do this today, my knee's hurting so bad. He's like, okay, we're gonna find other ways for you to strengthen your quad or something. So I think that was definitely a big piece. I would also say just keep communicating to people, like whether that be reaching out to your friends if you're really lonely, like getting out of the house, like don't isolate yourself. Because I think that's where I messed up, is where I was like, okay, I don't want to talk to anyone about this. It's just my thing. Like no one else knows what I'm going through, so I'm just gonna figure it out myself. And that is like completely wrong. Like if you have people like your family, your support system, whatever that may be, like those people want to help you, and so you have to let them help you because it's really hard if you don't let them help you because they have different insights. People have different things the way like to get you through things, and if you don't let them, like it's going to be a really big challenge and it just makes it a lot easier. I would also say just like going out, trying new things, like, because you don't want to let lacrosse or like your sport just define you. Like, you want to have other aspects of your personality or yourself, like that you can use in your day-to-day life and not just be like, oh, yeah, I play lacrosse in college. Like, I don't have any other characteristics to myself. Like, that may present me later in life that I might need, like finding a job. Like, I can't just be like, I was a D1 athlete, hire me. Like I have to have a good personality, like I have to be have good conversations, like present myself in a way. So like, finding new hobbies, just like, find yourself as well. Like I think it's a good time for you to reflect and like find different things about yourself that you might not know about. So I think just doing that, hanging out with your friends, your family, and just keep pushing because one day, like, you'll look back at it and you'll be so proud of yourself that you didn't quit because, yeah, sports are a big part of our lives and, like, you don't want to lose that. And I totally agree because, like, for the 2 years that I was out of my sport, like, a lot of it was like, that's all I thought about and wanting to get back to that. So I think just use it as motivation, but also find different things that, like, to fill your time and to like find about yourself that you might not have known about.
Absolutely. No, I think that's all great advice and great insights that way. And I just think it's so essential for athletes to kind of lean into other athletes that have been through the same thing or a similar thing in the past as well, because you get it. Like you have
Yeah.
firsthand experience, but you're also this firsthand account of, again, going back to what I mentioned before, that a lot of the numbers and stats, they don't have to apply to you, right?
Mhm.
You can beat all of the odds. You can come back from stuff. There was a kid we worked with on the podcast about a year ago now. And I had the, opportunity to help him during his rehab process that way, which I'm incredibly thankful for. But he had a second ACL injury on the same knee, and he had a meniscus transplant. So they took one out and put a whole new one in, and they repaired the other meniscus, which it was like there's no literature at all on meniscus transplant and return to sport for lacrosse. I don't know
Yeah.
if he's the first one to do it or not. Maybe he is, but he
Yeah.
proved it's possible. It's like, you can beat back a lot of these different odds that people are going to sit there and cite through a value of hard work, dedication, and again, just surrounding yourself with the right people and developing the right mindset. So I think leaning into athletes as a support system and kind of making this thing where we all just kind of lift each other up tends to be, again, really, really good. And I wish more people would be comfortable doing that.
Yeah, because I would say as a first timer for my going through my first one, I didn't know about any of this stuff and I kind of just relied on what I thought was going to be correct, and that's totally wrong. Like you gotta find different ways, like look up like what are the best ways to, I don't know, like strengthen your quad, like find different things that you can do and lean on people. I think just using myself to figure stuff out was the hardest thing for me, to like let other people in, and I would just give that advice to like find people that want to help you and let them do it. So yeah.
Did you keep anything like a journal or like some kind of like daily reflection log or anything like that during that time at all? Or
Yeah, I wrote down my thoughts of every day, like what was something I did differently. Also jot down new ideas like of what I could do. find new hobbies and everything like that. I wrote a lot of that down. I also read a lot of books about ACLs and stuff, and one book I think was called Grit, and it showed like had a lot of good quotes in it, and so I kind of wrote those quotes down on like stickies and stuff, and like put them everywhere. Like I'd put them on my mirror in my bathroom, I put them in my car, just finding ways to like remind yourself that like you'll get through it, but you just need a little help getting there.
Absolutely. No, I love that. That's such a great point. We've talked a lot about kind of things in the past and the present for you that way, because obviously you're back to sport. You just played a phenomenal season at Rutgers, and I think you scored what, like 10 goals this year, correct?
I think I had 16,
Oh my
7.
goodness. I'm lowballing you. My goodness, that's my bad.
No, it's fine.
So obviously we've talked a little bit about the past and the present and kind of where you're at now that way. What does the future hold? Obviously, you said you're in the business school at Rutgers and kind of want to get into this like sports marketing kind of space that way.
Yeah, I think going through this, I found this voice inside me that I really do like talking to people. And I think I wouldn't have known that about myself if I didn't go through these injuries. So I think as much as it sucks, like you have to find like the positives of the injuries and like going through it and finding yourself. And I think this voice inside me will help me with marketing. And I learned that I really like to talk to people. And I think I can have good conversations and stuff like that. So I think going into the marketing field, I think I'll be able to do that like well and use that to my advantage because of my injuries, if that makes sense. Just like pulling the positives and using it to move forward.
Absolutely no. And I think you've gotten to meet so many different providers in the space and you've gotten so many different experiences around sports that way, lacrosse, basketball, just the ins and outs of all of them that way that I think, what you've been through certainly sets you up for success. And obviously, in general, being an athlete, I think sets you up for this like fast track to success in life because you learn so many things from just sport in general, whether that be the
Yeah.
time management element or the value of hard work and dedication and commitment to something or the value of a good team, whatever it is that way, you just learn so many different lessons that I feel like you don't find anywhere else. And I think that leads you up for a very successful and happy life long term that way, whatever success looks like to you and whatever you're chasing.
Yeah, and definitely just seeing how far lacrosse can take me. They just introduced lacrosse back into the Olympics, so they're joining the Olympic Games in 2028. So shooting for the stars.
I
But
love that.
just kind of like seeing how far lacrosse can take me, like what connections I can build from it, like you obviously, and just going from there. I think a lot of it's just like talking to people, like learning your voice and using your sport to your advantage. Because obviously you play in college and there's a lot of different things that like open because of playing sports in college. And I think just using that to your advantage, finding a job later in life and, getting a good education, but also like, using your sport.
Are you staying in the kind of New Jersey, New York kind of area long term, or are we heading back home to Florida after college?
I haven't decided that yet. I definitely like the weather here more, but I will say there are good opportunities up north and like all the sports teams up there are awesome. So, I mean, we do have good sports teams here, but you know, just kind of seeing where it takes me.
Absolutely. Just being an open book, and who knows where you're going to land. Right? It could be a totally random state like freaking Utah or something, or
Yeah.
maybe it'll be right where you're from. So you never know what the next page is going to bring, and that's what makes it all exciting that way. I feel like we talked about a lot of different things as it relates to you, Samantha, and kind of your story and journey as it relates to sport and injury. Is there anything we missed or anything we didn't talk about today that you wanted to?
I think we hit a lot of things. I think injury was a big thing. Lacrosse, definitely wanting to grow the game of lacrosse, because obviously it's really big up north. That's kind of where it originated, but it's starting to boom in Florida. So just trying to like grow the game, I think, because it definitely deserves the recognition because it's such an awesome game in my opinion, and I think a lot of people would really like it if they knew what it was about. So I would say like joining your high school team, whether that be JV or varsity, or just trying out a club team, going to a practice or whatever. And like reaching out to your friends, if they play lacrosse or whatever, just try to get people involved and coaching younger kids is a big thing that I do. And um, I think it's really cool that kids really do look up to you, especially sports. Like if they want to become you, they kind of just want to embody you. So I think that's a big thing is with just trying to get the younger generation involved as well. And a lot of the kids in my area look up to me. They think like they think I'm so cool because I play college lacrosse, you know? Like they don't really know much about you, but they know that part and so they're like, "Wow, like I want to be her," you know? So I think just using your sport and everything like as a voice. Like one time I had this girl come up to me and I coached her maybe a year or two before and I haven't seen her in a while. And she came up to me one day and was like, "I talked about you in class today." And I was like, "Oh, like what'd you say?" And she was like, "Who got you into lacrosse? Because I know it's such a big part of your life." And she said me, and I was like, "Wow, you've literally just made my entire year because I touch someone and or I mean like like what's the word? I like got to someone to where like they wanted to be and like kind of pointed them in the direction where they want to be and I thought that was really cool. Like touching someone's heart, if that makes sense. Like I don't know how to make that sound.
Absolutely. No, I completely
Yeah.
agree. I mean, first off, you never know what impact and influence you're going to have on other people
Yeah.
that way. And it's amazing when you do have that kind of impact on others that way. It definitely makes you feel good, but also it's just so nice to know that you kind of give back to what gave to you in the first place, if you will. And building
Yeah.
off of that as well, I completely agree with your point on just growing the sport and growing the game that way. Lacrosse is such a fun sport to watch, one of my favorite sports to watch that way. And I think that it is finally, starting to get more attention and develop and kind of evolve that way. And it's something that I'm extremely excited for myself that way because I think it's a phenomenal sport and it's one that needs to get kind of the mainstream light that way. I mean, I'll go as far to say I've watched more lacrosse lately than baseball. It's just that big and that exciting of a sport in my mind.
Yeah, I've definitely loved being a part of that and like helping grow the game. Like the championships this year were like record numbers where people have went to them and I thought that was really cool. It just shows that it just keeps growing every year. And we obviously want to get it to the level of like a baseball or a soccer, you know, a basketball. Because I think it does, as you said, like or need the recognition that it like deserves.
Absolutely. Samantha, for people who want to find out more about you and get in touch with you and keep up to date with the rest of your journey that way, where can they find you at online?
They can see me on Instagram, Samantha Swanovich, Twitter, same thing. TikTok, same thing. That's all my name. So
Awesome. We'll link to all of that in the description below. That way, if you didn't quite catch it, you can just click there and see everything that Samantha and her teammates are up to. Samantha, this was amazing. I really appreciate your time and everything you're doing. Thank you so much.
thank you for having me. I'm really happy I was able to share my story.